very surprised to see the Aphelios priority. You did hear the desk highlighting that this is arguably the best champion for both these guys, the importance that it will have. But with the Kennen left up, it does feel like there's other priority picks, and you can take the secondary carries, the Jinxes, the Zeris, these kinds of things into it.
I wonder where Loud will go here. I think jungle does make a lot of sense. Get the Wukong. We have seen Croc also revert to the Sejuani in these sorts of situations, but it leaves the Kennen open still yet again. Perhaps there's just something between these two teams where they aren't prioritizing the Kennen right now, and sometimes that is what happens in these sorts of series.
It's hard to read in game one, and it's something that we'll probably see develop more. Is the other reason is you leave it up on right side is you assume the other team will first pick it. You think you're going to get the Aphelios, and Robo saying, hey, I have a champion that I can actually play into the Kennen. And so we'll see if he has a specific counter pick, because otherwise I think for the most part PSG has done a very good call of saying you don't actually want the Kennen. Robo's played it once this year, maybe not be the thing that they're most scared of, and saying you'll have to prove that you actually play it, because we're going to play Aphelios Thresh, get the bot lane we absolutely want around our star player and Wako, and we'll figure out the rest of the draft from there.
And PSG just already have so much safety. A really strong team fight, the ability to escape a difficult laning phase with the Thresh Aphelios if you need to. Loud not going to look to the top lane yet, perhaps thinking that PSG don't quite know what the counter pick is going to be, so they can't just ban them out in this R2 phase. Instead, we will see the Rakan for Seos.
Yeah, it makes sense. The enemy team, if you have a counter pick, they might not snipe that one out, but they have a mismatched bot lane, and you don't want to get shoved with the potential Lulu Rakan bans. Rakan being paired with Zeri is starting to see a higher priority. It's still kind of an enchanter like Lulu to help your lane phase, but then has more engage options. So for teams that like to be aggressive, we've seen this rising bot lane priority and not just auto-picking the Lulu pair with it.
I think especially when you have something like a Wukong who can be primary engaged, that's where Rakan really shines. His ability to jump onto someone with his R already active and then get onto the back line is where he really thrives in team fights. It can be a little bit difficult when you're engaging yourself because of the lockout between casting your ultimate and actually being able to use flash or W.
That combined with the grouping potential of the charm that he has means that for people with AoE ultimates like Wukong, it's just this kind of synergy where you get to help each other out. So no surprise to see that one grabbed up there. Also means the mismatch roles are going to be top lane and jungle. So jungle bans coming through onto JunJia. He had a very good Viego game previously, so no surprise there. Did not end up winning the game versus G2, but got very, very close.
Yes.
Major sweat.
But the early game, again, was a weakness for them in that game. They did manage to get back into it, but my worry still for PSG, even though they have a composition that works really well in those later game team fights, is how are they going to mitigate some early game losses? Because we know Loud will want to take some of those early game skirmishes.
It's something that has, I wouldn't say plagued PSG, because they came into the tournament obviously winning their region, but they played with a very slow pace of play, lowest combined kills per minute. They're not a team that seems to want to sweat in the early game, and it's something that these teams out here are very happy to go all in. You can see the level of aggression from most of the other teams in this portion of play, and has been giving PSG some problems so far. Loud, very aggressive team, willing to throw down, and most likely part of the reason that PSG might not be favored in this matchup is just seeing the play styles as well.
Obviously.
Whoa!
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a Ryze for Tinowns. He's played it a couple of times this year. We don't see it that often. It kind of jumps in and out of pro meta from time to time, but I guess it's an international tournament, so Ryze has to be on the menu.
Yeah, Ryze always seems to pop his head back up. President of Riot Games making his appearance here. And it is a champion that did see some occasional play in domestic regions. Randomly, you would get it when it's like, we kind of want something that can push in Rome, and like Talia's not good here or something. You know, I'm surprised you would take it over a Talia if that's the strategy that you want to. This laning phase is quite a bit better, I think, to most people. A little bit better 1v1 side laning later in the game for Ryze, and maybe that's what they're kind of going to set up here. It could also be the counter pick into the Kennen when we're talking about the things that you can play into it. Ryze top lane has been something we've seen plenty of times before.
We'll have to see where Loud decide to go with their final pick here. The Tristana and the Sejuani, though, for PSG gives them control over that mid lane prio early on, alongside the Sejuani for that crowd control later on in the game. Not too many melees, in fact, no melees for PSG to really set
No
up
one's going to help him out.
But he can still get, you know, the icebreaker off by himself. Loud taking a little bit of time over the last pick here. We'll see if that Ryze does go up towards the top lane, but could just be looking. It is. It's going to be Ryze top here with Cassio locked in last to try and deal with that.
No, sir. That is a Cassio top.
Into Kennen?
I think that's a Cassio top. A lot of people have been secretly playing Cassio top on their accounts into some of these range matchups, and maybe I'm wrong. They do have it mid lane right now. I could be gassing up the complete wrong idea.
Well, tell me why it would work.
So a lot of the reason is because Cassio just tends to win a lot of trades, especially level 2 with the QE combination, and can heavily outpush pretty much anyone else because of this trading pattern. and it's something where it is very volatile. You can get ganked and die, but if you get alone time, you win almost every single matchup. So it feels like top laners are always trying to find a reason to sneak it in. Looks like I'm lying to everyone here because
you're telling the truth. It's just
what I'm saying is correct about the gameplay, but it's not going to happen here unless Tinowns ends up going top. But that's a totally different story. That I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole yet.
It would be interesting if we saw Tinowns deciding to go towards that top lane. He is undefeated on the Cassio through his professional career, though. 4 games, 4 wins on it. Croc as well on the Wukong has played 21 Wukong games with 15 wins off at the back of the Monkey King.
Definitely going to say the Ryze top. Similar.
And as we make our way onto Summoner's Rift, in what is a decisive match for both of these teams, Loud have brought something a little bit different to the party. Worlds 2019 was the last time we saw Ryze top. I've looked through Robo's history as well and can't see Ryze pretty much anywhere on it. He's played 2 games on it, has won 1 and lost 1. Looking to make it 2-1 in this series. Early on though, both the teams not really making too many forays into the enemy jungle, just poking your head in, doing a little prodding, but not going to find too much. Sales here will just be looking for a ward on the red buff to make sure they know where JunJia is starting, and they will get that ward down.
We'll see how this series goes. It feels like a bit of a restructuring, as I've said a couple times, in the minor regions power rankings. The fact that VCS dropped to the LLA. You had CBLOL winning as well yesterday, and feeling like they have a chance here. PSG are trying their best to hold on to this kind of prestige that they have as the one to fear the most in the play-in phase.
And it's really difficult to judge exactly how this series is going to go down because we've seen both these teams get a 2-0 over DFM as Robo and Azhi is just going to trade here in the top lane. Azhi does have more powerful auto attacks in the early game, so he can use those to take Robo down to half HP.
The early trading, like I was saying for the Kennen, quite strong with D-Blade start, E with the attack speed. You can actually get in there and kind of mess the Ryze up, but the Ryze with levels will usually be able to start pushing the wave easier, as well as the E spread early on. Kennen will have to run through the wave to get that, so you can see a nice little trade there initially for Azhi, but for the most part, we have the jungler starting bot side going to clear up, knowing that that is a very volatile top side matchup. Not surprised to see both junglers want to get up there early.
And both the junglers will be tracked at least a small bit in this early game. The red buff spotted as JunJia started there. And Croc is going to be spotted on his Razor Beaks as he does go across. Those early pushes in to make sure you have vision on the jungler, something we see very commonly now.
Yeah, absolutely. Skipping the Gromp there for Croc, trying to get up there a little bit earlier. Mid lane matchup, we have not seen a Cassio very often, I should say. It's kind of got overlooked by the top lane shenanigans, but Cassio's a very, very strong champion in the 1v1. Ubao has an incredible Tristana. Watching the regional run, you start busting it out a little bit more often and had some very, very impressive plays on the champion. And usually has a very strong lane phase, relatively uninteractive, where your W can get you out of most situations. Your E is going to auto-push the wave. You have good trading patterns. And Cassio is someone who, of the mages, can actually go toe-to-toe a little bit.
We have a couple of options as that Tristana push and move, or just keep trying to take down tower place. Croc trading with JunJia here. Croc will flash the wall. Permafrost was on its way to being Croc there. Croc, 1 auto away from being locked up, and because of that, realizes he needs to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, Croc thinking he can maybe win that trade a little harder, using his W for some extra damage, but the tag by JunJia on the W, making sure he couldn't run away. Croc loses his flash. Both junglers know where they are, though, which means there's not going to be an immediate threat of dive. Robo had been chunked low, though, in the early trading pattern. He's going to have to TP back up the lane. Did he get enough for a mana crystal? Or tier, excuse me, yeah.
Grab the tip. Just a tiny bit amount of gold down there to Azure, but should be fine in just getting back with the TP, especially knowing that Croc is on that top side. So if JunJia had looked for a repeat gank, Croc could have protected from that.
You can see a lot of focus knowing that they want to protect Robo. The fact that they have 1 ward in River, 1 ward in the Tribush. There's no angle to really surprise him. Wave should be pushing him to him as well, so just going to be able to farm up early on.
But what I expect to see is ubao just pushing out mid and moving. And that's exactly what he's doing. Alongside JunJia, these wards are going to spot. But can Robo actually survive a possible dive that's about to be materialized here from PSG? ubao jumps across the wall. Robo's going to try and keep himself alive. Does have the flash, but he's locked up. Flashes away, still stunned. Locked underneath the tower, and first blood to PSG.
Very nice roam there by ubao, getting on the map early on. Bit of a greed by Tinowns. Had his TP available, but wanted to recall first, but was just too slow to get back into base. Ends up using his TP to get back into lane instead. No one there to protect him, and Robo drops.
And that's the risk of playing something like a Ryze top. The enemy team knows if they start to put you behind, even if you invest vision, even if you invest time into trying to add that security blanket, It becomes very tricky from this point on because now you have no TP and no flash, and you're facing up against a Kennen and a Sejuani who will be very happy just to clear her top side and look top again.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can make some repeat ganks happen up there. Tinowns having a decent time in the mid lane in the meantime. Bot side going relatively even. And Robo, like we said, was kind of the X factor in a lot of the loud games.
Yep.
Of course, you can fall back onto Root's late game carry, especially on a Zeri, but the games they look the best is when he's able to pop off. So it's very nice to see Azhi stepping up, getting a kill with the rest of his team here, setting the wave up, trading to get Robo low after TPing back in the lane.
It's the English countryside in the distance as we see the rolling plains of Robo.
The inspiration for the Shire.
Yep. And Robo, just not really much you can do in that situation. There's too much CC threat. Ubao can come across because he gets the push in mid, and in a 3v1, you are very unlikely to survive.
Yeah, so now the problem is that, like you said, the repeat gank potential in the early Mantle picked up there to get some extra MR resist so you can actually just keep pushing and winning these lays. Azhi going for a little bit more lane-focused build early on.
It's definitely going to work out for him. On the rest of the map, though, pretty even across the board. You can see Tinowns getting a slight CS lead in the mid lane. As you said, Cassio very good in the 1v1, but the ability to isolate Ubao is pretty tricky because he has range, and he can just stand back and catch the wave as it pushes in.
That is one of the things that makes, as we head into the late game, assuming it's relatively even and not just a stomp if PSG just keeps running away with the game, but if it's close, PSG with this full range comp that you're kind of talking about, Sejuani is not there to be like the initiator with an Akali flying in and blowing somebody up. But you have arranged setup tools with your ult that you kind of throw out and lock someone down for the other ranged members of your team to then just hit that one isolated target. In Loud, despite having a lot of damage, are very low range. Ryze and Cassio can both struggle to play into long range CC where they don't have someone that they can kind of throw all their damage at. And you're going to get outranged by Green Gun if Wako has that. Obviously, Azhi is going to give a lot of AoE crowd control, and Ubao will be pretty safe hitting from a further range.
Of course, Tristana gets more range as she levels up with that draw bead passive. And it becomes very tricky as well, not only for Tinowns and for Robo, but for Root. Because part of Zeri's power is her ability to dodge in and dodge out of fights, but when you can never get close enough to auto-attack your opponents, it becomes very tricky to actually navigate those situations.
All this is to say there's going to be a lot of pressure on Croc and Seosh to actually find clean engages and set up targets for the side of the carries of Loud to move in.
And it's a lot of being on position first as well. If you can set up vision in the river before you start a dragon, if you can get your players there and have PSG walking into you, that's where Loud can really thrive. But for the moment, PSG about 800 gold ahead, 7 minutes in the game. We see some wards for them, control wards down towards that bot side river, but neither team has really made a big attempt towards taking a neutral as of yet.
No, this is absolutely the comfort zone for PSG. We're talking about the slow pace of play that they've had regionally.
No
being
flash.
able, hold on here.
He's got no flash, he's got nowhere to go. He could pop the Realm Ward, but JunJia's just going to come in and lock him up, and there's no escape for Robo. Second kill of the game to PSG.
Such an easy kill to make happen there. Azhi is locking him down as JunJia comes in, and this is exactly what we were worried about for Robo, getting chain ganked and attacked. Did have enough gold to fortunately start continuing on with his build, going towards that Rod of Ages, but still not at all what you're probably hoping to get early on with this counter pick.
And because they only need JunJia and Azhi to go towards that top lane to pick up the kills, Ubao gets time with the mid lane tower. He has Demolish on this Tristana. That's already one plate down. You can see probably 200 HP left on the second plate. And Ubao's just going to start accelerating his gold as well. And even though Tinowns was able to win out in the early skirmishes, Ubao will be on a very even keel when we get towards the neutral objective fights.
Yeah, and that's exactly how PSG likes to play, like we were saying. Yeah. You don't do nothing in the early game, but very intentional attacks on certain parts of the map to move around, negate the enemy team's power points so that you can start setting up around objectives easier. 8 minutes in now, you can see Loud with 3 pink wards in the top side, knowing that the first objective that they're probably going to go after is this Rift Herald, and it seems like they do not want to let it go uncontested. Zeri is taking her back right now. Root might make their way up there. PSG sending Aphelios bot lane means that this is probably more just stalling with Woody up here in the top side. JunJia is on the wrong side of the map, so not really looking to contest this one actually right now.
It feels like a little bit of a weird move from Woody because you know they're doing Rift Herald at this point. Yes, the ward will give you a little bit of extra awareness that it's happening, but when your jungler is on the bot side of the map, when your AD carry is reset down towards the bottom lane, you're not really playing to contest. PSG could have used that time to continue to get deeper vision in towards the blue side jungle, and Croc is looking for what is. He has to flash away. The hook will connect. Ubao coming in as well. There's the threshold going down. Croc locked up. Glacial Britain does connect, and Croc escapes for a moment, but in the end, Woody's Ignite will tick him down. Sales now trying to extract himself from the situation. He will manage to get to the safety of the turret, but PSG with the pick on the enemy jungler can now turn their eyes towards the dragon.
Yeah, Loud sack the Rift Herald, get some bot side control, and as Loud tried to move back through mid lane, getting a little over aggressive there, jumping on top of Woody, who had all his sums available, very easy to get out. And a nice hook to set up that play for the side of PSG. Also buys them control to go ahead, grab this dragon, avoid Loud when they're grouped up, and just pick them apart for their third kill.
It's a controlled early game from PSG. 3-0 up, 2,000 gold in the lead as we crest the 10-minute mark. And you have to feel everything is going the way that PSG would have wanted it to. We'll see this again. You can see what Loud are thinking. It's like, well, we have 3 people here. Perhaps we can just isolate this support.
Yeah, the right idea, but Sejuani did not pop the ult first, so did not charm up Woody. Had a nice reaction flash, and Croc had used his W to get into a stealth jump-in position, which means it's very easy for them after they land that hook. He only has his flash available. JunJia was off on the side, easy finish off.
It becomes very tricky now for Loud to work out exactly how they want to play this. Investing gold into Tinowns. Could have done it to Root as well. Woody spotted on a ward, he'll sweep that away, but this is only going to be 2 plates at best. Croc and Tinowns will step forward to make sure that second plate does get smashed. Tinowns with the final auto gets it. Gold split between him and his jungler.
Felt like the only lane that has Prio and easy to drop it in though. I'm sure they would love to have funneled the Zeri, but they have not really had Prio for the early portions of this lane phase.
They haven't really had Prio anywhere.
It's fair to say the one lane you kind of, maybe a little bit, is Tinowns, but of course Cassio is a notoriously poor roaming champion, no mobility, and if you ever get caught out in the wrong spot, you tend to drop. So Loud not having too many power points on the map. The only one was that kind of top side, and PSG did a very good job neutralizing it right away.
And the difficulty for Loud is, what do you do in this sort of situation? You can see Sejuani and Croc trying to team up, trying to find ganks, but all of PSG are just taking a step back. Whenever they know their weak side, just like, we can play on the tower, that's fine, I'll catch this wave. Same happens in mid lane as ubao backs away. JunJia is going to come across, but ubao is there to protect him in case anyone was sitting in the jungle. And now as Croc does step forward, ubao will try and quickly clear the wave and come across. Woody is getting caught by Sejuani right now, knocked up, but JunJia is the first to react. The AD carries, and Wako should be there first as well. Quickness being popped, the box comes down. JunJia just trying to keep the enemy jungle and support away from his support. But in the end, Croc will kill Woody. JunJia gets one in response, support for support so far. And meanwhile, ubao and Wako just farming up their lanes.
Yeah, both AD carries refusing to move and lose any CS as jungle and supports get scrappy out there. Nice first blood for Loud, but it does cost Sejuani his life, cost his ultimate as well. Still has all his sums though.
Yeah. I mean, you take that. As Rakan, you're like, oh, I'll trade my life to get a kill on my Wukong. Maybe he'll get to Sundra quicker.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're very happy to accelerate Wukong, a champion that's going to make very good use of that gold. One of the primary initiators for the team, also one of the few physical damage threats with double AP solo lane, so obviously you want that.
Root going in with the lightning rush, popped up by the Graviton, but Sejuani is here, the flash forward, flash exhaust, the knockup goes wide, but Wako will fall. Loud on the board in the bottom lane.
Sejuani saving those sums from the initial fight, able to immediately put them to use, flying up into lane with Rout being delivered there for the exhaust, finding the kill onto Wako, very nicely done there.
And now Robo might be in for a little bit of pain in this top lane. ubao jumps across the flash slicing Maelstrom, and Robo just doesn't get an opportunity to move, instantly deleted in the top lane, and that's 2 more plates over to PSG.
Azhi and ubao heard the criticism, people wanting more out of the solo lanes, out of PSG, and they are delivering this game, making moves happen on the top side of the map there. With that time, ubao will also start farming up some more plates. He is going to be so far ahead of the Cassio. Despite the Rift Herald being used mid, it's a 1,000 gold advantage already for ubao.
Yeah, 1.3k, 600 gold in the jungle as well. Even though Azhi has had a pretty handsome laning phase in terms of people coming into his lane and helping him out, he hasn't been the beneficiary of too much of that gold. Does still have a slight lead in that top lane. And with a minute on the Mountain Drake, I expect that's where we'll see PSG start to invest some of their time, some of their vision control. At the moment, that bot river does belong to Loud, but on the resets, you have to think that PSG will want to wrest control back into their grasp.
PSG is a team that absolutely loves dragons. The majority of their games, I believe, that end with Dragon Soul in their pocket. And they are, like we said, a slow-paced team, loves to sack dragons as Robo.
No matter where you are, PSG will find you. Robo does still have the flash, but doesn't want to invest it. 0-4 now on Loud's carry top.
Oh, Robo just so far up in the lane, did have his flash available, but again, no chance to use it there. Not playing respectfully enough. They don't have much advanced vision. They don't know exactly when ubao will be back off the reset, but you knew it had to be soon. So the fact that he is so far up in that lane, bit of a mistake there by him. As you see across the map from MasterCard, gold leads in favor of PSG, feeling very good now.
Yeah, 4,000 gold lead in total. And they're just in such a commanding position. Loud do have the ability to engage. If they can find a good avenue into a team fight, a good flank, perhaps they can assassinate ubao or assassinate Wako before the fight really begins. But even then, you have to deal with Azhi. And it's going to become a tricky situation for them.
Something about this comp that does not speak to Loud's general playstyle, to me at least, is the double Roa builds that you'll see out of Ryze and Cassio. It's not the biggest immediate mythic power spike, and you'll want to scale up. Meaning you're not going to be roughly at full power until much later into the mid-game, 25-ish minutes, when all these things, your Seraphs are completed as well. It's not the fast-paced kind of playstyle I think Loud typically can excel at. Not like they all in on early game or anything like that, but here it's just so hard to win 5v5s while you're not stacking up, or not fully stacked, excuse me. So you can see that they are cross-mapping well. This is the second Rift Herald they're able to grab, but already the gold lead just continuing to grow, and eventually they'll be forced into these dragon fights. I'm not sure they'll be actually online before Soul is kind of on the table.
I mean, that's the only thing. Maybe they're saved by a Soul, and they kind of are. Chem Soul, not the best when you're playing a multiple squishy composition.
You take those!
Yeah, as Loud, that's the best Soul you probably could have got. And the fact that, you know, Aphelios takes less damage below 50% HP, well, he's usually dead if he's below 50% HP in a lot of these fights. So Loud, a small mercy for them, but PSG now moving their bot lane and their support towards the mid lane. Support will team up with JunJia and get some deep vision in, let ubao push in the top lane. Robo doesn't really have any way to answer the pressure that is being enacted here by PSG. Loud playing down towards the bottom side of the map, do have that Rift Herald in their pocket and can use it to try and crack one of these turrets for a little bit of a bounty, but it's a small mercy for them.
I do like this lane setup though, putting the Cassio versus the Kennen instead, getting push on this side and being able to overload this portion of the map. Not sure if you'd be able to do that versus ubao with the Cassio for how accelerated the Tristana is. So the fact that Kennen had a great game as Robo calculated, easy.
He's a Robo, you know, he did the maths quickly.
Crunch the numbers.
Crunch the numbers, the algorithm says, yeah, I survived. But I do like it from PSG as well when you talk about lane assignments. Putting ubao into Robo when Robo has started to itemize towards magic resist and probably has magic resist runes because of the Kennen. It makes sense, you know, you have this huge physical damage threat. You can try and actually isolate Robo even more than he has already been isolated in this game.
Cute little brush setup there, trying to bait Woody into face checking Tinowns potentially. But Woody did not take the bait, so they're able to get control mid. Very happy for Wako to just sit mid and farm up now after that initial first blood in the bot lane.
I mean, Woody's used to dealing with snakes in his boots, so
oh, you said you weren't going to do them. You lied to me. You said no Toy Story. You said no Buzz Lightyear, technically not Toy Story. So
that's the only one I've got. I'm not Munch.
Snake in your boot is all you got.
Yeah.
Well, it's an appropriate game. It would be hard not to say with a Cassio in there.
It's, you know, everything coincided towards a perfect pun, and I'm sure Freak, looking on from the sideline, would be happy that someone's continuing his legacy. That's what we remember him for.
Like, is that his legacy? Puns. I like the legacy call out for Freak's, you know, season 1 basement for Worlds, saying we're continuing it here in London with the darker aesthetic that we've gone for.
True. I mean, he's got rich over the late years. The basement's got a little bit bigger.
A much more spacious basement.
Right now, we see both the teams grouping up towards that mid lane. Moonlight Vigil goes out. No crit on it means that Loud are able to survive. They just want to push out this wave. It's one thing that PSG have yet to manage to do is crack this mid lane turret. They'll want to get that down before the next dragon because it just gives you so much more control over the enemy jungle. You can step so much further up. ubao here might be on the wrong side of a gank. Croc going in. ubao's going to jump away. Does still have the flash. Flash forward as Root tries to dive in as well. Buster shot available to ubao. Knocks back one, but he's knocked down himself. Croc with the shut down.
Croc having a pretty good game. The only member feels like right now who's stepping up, finding these 2 kills. Root still just mostly holding on and farming up, but does get to follow up on that play, get a little bit more gold, trying to funnel him a little bit. Still roughly 1,200 gold down behind his counterpart in Wako.
Zeri, of course, can do a lot of work when team fights do begin. The question is whether Loud will be able to take a team fight on even terms, because right now, everything is pointing towards no. Root's going to be given some gold down towards his bottom side as the Rift Herald charges in, and that's the mid lane tower broken. JunJia trying to distract Loud, but they get 2 objective bounties out of that. And you look at the gold from 3K to 2K in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, that's actually huge for Loud. The fact that they could push out the bot lane after making that play, using the Rift Herald mid to make sure that no one could actually go and cover Root when he was pushing that one out. They have a 3rd turret pretty low up in the top side as well, so they might be able to get a little bit more gold if they want to stack 3rd Dragon and overload top side of the map. If they're not quite ready to fight yet, still stacking up 7 stacks and 6 for the Rod of Ages on both their solo laners means that not a bad play if you want to look for that instead of contesting in a minute.
Yeah, but I think they're going to fight, Mark.
It does feel like they're going to fight. You say that.
I get the feeling right now with the Runaan's and the Immortal Shieldbow complete en route and 2 items on Tinowns, the Seraph's fully stacked up, Seraph's on its way for Robo. I just feel like Loud have been patient enough. They are very good at being patient. I think that's something I need to commend them for across their series yesterday. They took small advantages and then backed off, but there's only so much waiting you can do when you love fighting.
Yeah, they definitely, I would love to see the back off play potentially and let Robo finish his 2nd item, but I can also see not wanting to do that. JunJia.
He's pushed up, but he's very tanky. Already has the Warmogs, and this is kind of JunJia's job. Everyone else on this team is squishy. He has to be the one face checking, so now the Warmogs will proc. He'll heal back up to full HP, and then it can just reset with the rest of his team to push in. ubao's pushing in top here, does have the TP. Loud might see this as an opportunity to take a fight before that teleport can join up with the rest of PSG.
Now we see if they go too slowly here for Loud, though, ubao will be able to crush these turrets with the Demolish and just the natural Tristana demolition skills.
JunJia could just look at the seal. Can just start to consult away. He goes in. Glacial Prism used. It's taken by Root. The Dragon secured. The tower in the top lane will fall. And in the end, no kills, but an objective over to Loud.
PSG actually the ones evicting from the jungle fight to go grab more gold. JunJia buying space in the mid lane to buy more time for ubao. Already working down the inhibitor turret a little bit, but Robo has gotten the back off, excuse me. PSG swing the gold lead back pretty heavily in their favor.
Yeah, 4K in the lead. You can see why Loud wanted to go for the Drake. You want to avoid that soul stack from happening, but it does cost them 2 towers. JunJia caught a little bit here, does have a flash, will dash away. Croc going into the pit as well. Croc now can just turn back around onto Croc. The Cyclone coming out, but Croc is going to fall, and the Baron is available to PSG. They kill off the enemy jungler, who is a little bit too overeager for that battle.
Croc getting way ahead of himself there. Some members of LLL can follow him over the wall, Root or Seosh if they were in range, but just jumping into the river that's basically blind, knowing that PSG is probably still somewhat in the area after grabbing that mid lane turret is a massive overextension there.
There's a lot of patience from PSG as well to not go for the Baron. As soon as you kill the enemy jungler, when you see the Baron there, like, it's just in your head, I think instinctual, it's like, well, we could get this huge buff that can win us the game.
Well, especially with the comp that they have, having a lot of damage to actually burst it down. The double marksman composition can melt through a Baron if they ever have some alone time with it. But this does speak to the PSG play style. They are very happy to take their small victories and just kind of grind the opponent down over and over again.
Just keep it slow, keep it simple. It's worked for them against DFM, almost worked for them against G2. Right now, Loud looking for something, anything really on the map. 4K behind. They are starting to scale up. Robo now at 2 items, even though he was shut down so much in the early game, actually matching Azure in terms of itemization, or at least in terms of effective gold. Tinowns as well with 10 stacks on his Rod of Ages. Will just level up. Gets to 14. Cassio at 16. A mighty beast to try and fell. PSG start to set up down towards this, up towards this Baron pit. ubao is down in the bottom lane. He's just being matched by Tinowns. He does have kill threat on the Cassio, but it can be a little bit tricky because of the Twin Fangs healing, the Conqueror healing, and that Petrifying Gaze that you have to avoid.
The big one is, of course, the ultimate. If you do get stunned up by that, it makes it much easier to land the poison, to keep chaining your empowered ease against it. Robo not being this strong is probably the big problem for LLL's comp here. Loud would love to have him be a side lane threat, but not able to actually get that against the Kennen, who has finished the Banshee's Veil off. Ryze in the side lane being able to get very tanky with strong wave clear. The phase rush escapes as well. Usually makes him pretty safe to put on the bot side of the map, but just too far behind at this point, especially if you had put him against ubao in the bot side.
It has been a while since we saw Ryze builds. I can't remember if Frozen Heart is really bad on him now, or if it's still a possibility. In this comp, it could work.
It could, because there's a lot of auto attackers here, but you're probably not like in range of the aura.
That's true. That is true.
And on top of the fact that a lot of the mana scalings by Ryze got hit quite a bit, so he's been forced into more of an AP-centric build. most likely. We'll see what he wants to go after this. Could be probably not any pen items needed. JunJia did go for the Warmogs first, not having a ton of resist. I do like this actually out of him, knowing that as a frontliner, he kind of just has to walk in, face check, probably going to get chunked out, and then need to top himself back up. It's not an all-in, be super tanky kind of playstyle that you want. It is more in and out with the range that PSG have.
And it looks like Robo is going for a little bit of armor. It's going to be Azonya's next for him. Has the stopwatch right now. PSG setting up around this Baron once again. Tinowns and ubao just poking at each other down towards the bottom side of the map. The blue buff up, and that's going to be stolen away, well, taken away by Tinowns. Seos caught up for a second, but he can dash across the wall. And once again, it's just PSG denying as much vision as possible, taking camps, taking away any possible wards that Loud have placed, and keeping them at bay. Azhi's going to land the stun there. Of course, the decoy away from Croc gets him back to safety, but that's half his HP gone. And now he has to wonder, are they starting Baron? It's always a possibility, but as soon as you see Wako on the map, it's very much less likely for PSG.
Yeah, PSG is definitely the kind of team that you will find camping your brushes, much more likely than starting the Baron off. I do think this is, again, a comp where you can do that and put a lot more pressure out by starting the Baron and forcing them in.
Theos caught the slicing master going across the wall, as well as Robo is locked down in the midst of 4 members of PSG. Another hook hits onto Robo, and he will fall for the 5th time this game. You said they camp the bush, well, they find their prey, Mark.
They find the 1 kill onto Robo. They instead back off instead of going onto the Baron, going for the Dragon that's going to be spawning soon to keep the stacking going in their favor. Coupled with the big team fight ultimates down makes them not want to posture around the Baron instead.
But the reason they find that kill is Seos pops Shurelias to try and get a control ward in the back of the pit because all that vision's denied. Robo stands there so he can battle dance back to him, and as soon as Seos battle dances, it's like, cool, we know exactly where we need to aim this ultimate, just chuck it in and see who we can find.
Yeah, and Azhi as well having a very nice flash over the wall to find multiple members with his Maelstrom, lock them down, find that kill. Still only 1 kill, still not super aggressive decision making. Here it feels like they're saying, all right, enough's enough, Bloodthirster. Already have some pen items as well here for ubao. Gonna start it up.
Spotted with the Farsight alteration. Tinowns is here, as is Croc. Robo, the only member of Cloud, not quite in the vicinity. Dodge away from the hook.
Ooh.
And PSG will invest the TP, not find too much out of it. Dragon is up as well if they want to go for it. Seos going forward, but again, the Warmogs on that Sejuani. It's going to make it very difficult to make any of this damage stick.
During all that time, the fact that teleport went back to the top side means Dragon's still not done yet. Neither team grabbing that one up, but PSG having a lot more control. Feels like Loud might sack this one to just go get some vision control potentially up in the top side.
I agree with that. I also think there's always the risk that Loud could just burst down a Baron. You have a
very
Zeri,
good damage.
You have a Cassio, even the Ryze will be doing pretty good damage to the Baron at this point, so you need to make sure that you don't invest everyone down towards this bottom side as PSG, and that's exactly what they're doing. They send ubao down there, it will secure the Dragon. JunJia was making sure that nothing was happening on that top side of the map.
Yeah, Tristana, one of the best champions to leave alone with objectives, both turrets and dragons and stuff, especially with the Bloodthirster completed, won't take any damage. This time they swap the Kennen down to the bot side. I think this is to keep a higher pressure onto Baron. With ubao splitting bot, you don't quite have the double marksman threat onto the Baron that you would typically see. So here, actually putting the Kennen down there.
And obviously, well, as well as that, the ubao not having TP now, because he TP'd up to the Baron, so you want him to be with the rest of the team. It's very much easier to react to a Baron play if you're on that top side of the map. And it's always the power of double TP. It's something we kind of saw fall out of the meta for a short while. There was like a time when top laners would be taking Ghost Flash or Ignite, or mid laners were going for the Ignite as well as JunJia is caught out a little bit, but he's Sejuani. And that boar is pretty tanky right now. Wako, there's going to flash away. The stun on Seos means he can't get in with the quickness. The charm's still going to land onto Wako, but Loud unable to find a full engage, and now PSG will try and turn it back around. The Moonlight Vigil lands, and Croc goes down. Azhi coming in from the side as well, but Root is able to dash across the wall and flash away to safety. And will this be the call for PSG? The Baron a possibility.
1 man down, Croc dropping yet again. We talked about the combination of Rakan and Wukong having insane engage range. The problem is Cassio cannot follow that at all, and so it took too long to get damage down to Wako. They're able to initially kill Croc with no jungler left up. PSG are able to grab a free Baron.
All it cost was Croc's life, which is a sacrifice they are willing to make in this sort of situation, I think, Mark. PSG, as you say, with the Baron, with a 6,000 gold lead, Dragon up in 3 minutes, so it's going to be pure push from this Baron. Don't even need to set up around an objective. The only good thing for Loud is they have managed to shove out some of these waves. Mid is over the halfway mark, bot lane just caught. by PSG. Top is going to push in, but Tinowns should be there to answer it before anyone from PSG can react.
Yeah, but still, PSG having such strong range advantage means that once you get this Baron down, it's very easy to start finishing off these turrets. We'll see how aggressive they want to get. 2 inners in the mid and bot lane still available. You can see them moving out now, getting vision in the bot side, knowing that they'll be rotating between these 2 lanes. ubao pushing out, getting that lane going in their favor.
JunJia just stepping forward, getting the vision control. Azhi's going to follow up. Is it quad scryers, quad oracles for PSG? All about just denying as much vision as possible. Wako has a lantern there in case Tinowns did look for a flash petrifying gaze. Croc coming in from the side as well. Shirelia's pop, but JunJia still has the flash. Doesn't even need to use it while Azhi and ubao push in the bottom lane. Get the turret. That's another tier 2 over to PSG. And their gold lead continues to extend.
Both turrets going in. ubao?
I think you're a bit overeager for that fight, Mark.
I mean, I've seen some crazy Tristanas already.
It's just the ubao insect coming in.
I've seen a lot of Malphite ults. Don't tell me about that.
Those are usually quite tactical, though,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So, 2 tier 2s, though. PSG don't even need to kill off Loud to continue to push in. And as you say, it's a lot about the siege potential, the range advantage for PSG. Loud have to find and engage, but PSG very willing just to let JunJia be on that front line. He's the one that steps up. If Loud engage, cool, you're on the Sejuani. She's tanky enough to survive, especially with a Force of Nature second item into this double mage comp that Loud are running.
Yeah, very nice itemization out of JunJia this game, knowing exactly where the threats are, how to itemize correctly, how to function within his team composition. A little surprised to see the reset potentially coming through. Azhi wanting to go up and get the top wave pushing as well, maybe set up a 1-3-1 instead of this 4-1 that they've kind of been running. Only 30 seconds left on the Baron, though.
Are you surprised, Mark? We've been watching this team the whole tournament.
There was one, I can't remember which game it was, there was one game where they TP'd back in the mid lane to try and end. I was like, no way. And then as soon as it didn't instantly go right, they're like, never mind, that was a mistake.
I should have brought in Messi. He would have known what to do. Just dribble it between the opposition.
That's a reference I don't really get.
He's a footballer that plays.
I know who Messi is, but I mean, like in terms of play style, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, he finds a way to weave through the opposition, right? So if you're trying to end the game, he'd weave his way. I'm gonna be honest. All I had was Messi plays for PSG in my head when I started, and then you called me out specifically.
My bad. My ignorance exposed yours. Apologies.
JunJia once again he meets up with his enemy jungler, but he is fine for the moment. And for Loud, you are still getting a few items under your belt. You're still trying to scale. Thankfully, no inhibitors or inhibitor towers were broken on that Baron push. So you bought yourself a few seconds, at least, maybe a minute. Maybe you can find a good fight as PSG will retreat with the Shirelias. Azhi in a great position here on this flank, though. Could go up towards Robo or could come down and join the rest of his team.
I'm hoping to see Loud actually contest this soul while it's not the most important objective in the world. Hold on.
ubao steps forward, Petrifying Gaze dodged by Azhi, but Robo was able to react in time, and the Slice of Mushroom really doesn't find anything. Robo now trying to open up with the Ryze. JunJia forced away, Azhi down to half HP. Tinowns continues to put the Twin Fangs in the back of PSG, and they disengage the fight. Loud now do have an opportunity to go down and contest this dragon, but look at what ubao is doing, Mark.
Yeah, ubao going after the top side instead to push, forcing Loud to kind of commit to this dragon.
Moonlight Vigil went wide. Croc's going to dash away from this one. Seos forced low. Croc already down to Azhi. Seos goes down as well. Tinowns pops the stopwatch, but afterwards he just goes pop. PSG find the fight. They didn't even need their mid laner to do so.
They corral Loud into the jungle and finish them off while ubao gets the wave going up in the top side. This is most likely game. 40 minutes on Tinowns, 20 on Seos and Croc. Only 3 men left alive to defend the 5-man push out of PSG.
And for PSG, it's been slow and steady, wins the race. Lightning Crash coming out, no minions are one. Just that cannon up towards Robo as Root tries to open up with the Lightning Crash, but Wako steps right into his face. The Nexus exposed, but perhaps Loud have exposed a weakness in PSG. The Shurikens stepping up, and now Wako can open up. Root down, Robo flashed in, but he immediately is dashed against the rocks. Seos and Croc back alive, but Wako continues to survive. The Cyclone coming out from Croc, he'll get one. He can't answer it with any more.
Tinowns in 7.
ubao and JunJia on the Nexus. The quickness, the flash will not be enough to keep Loud in the game. PSG 1-0 up.
A valiant last-ditch base defense by Loud, but it comes up short. ubao, the Tristana, the threat all game long, staying alive, finishing off the Nexus there for PSG to grab the first win in this best of 3 in a very commanding, suffocating fashion.
That was definitely the issue for Loud. They really never found an avenue into that early game, and PSG very willing just to take things slow, to take things steady, and in the end, take down the Nexus. 1 game away now from facing up against Golden Guardians tomorrow.
We'll have to see if they can close it out, see what side selection they go for, but definitely felt like the double Roa, double tier solo lane build was not